Hi everybody, this is the second tutorial in section 1. This is to cover for our unit 2 portion of section 1. Now for unit 2, our main goal is for us to find an artist that we are inspired by or whose work we enjoy. Past tutorials and past workshops, we haven't really focused a whole lot on examples of standalone work. Most of this has been work from published authors because that was the focus, the primary focus. So the examples that I have from past workshops are published authors, but since I'm asking you to choose an artist whose work you enjoy, it can be a standalone painter, or it could be someone who creates illustrated books or comics, an artist, just an artist in general. Since I ask you to do that, I am going to share with you some of my favorites in this tutorial, supplementary tutorial. So here are a few of my favorite creators, and I go into a little bit of explanation as to why. Now remember, these tutorials, these separate Frankenstein patchworked of past workshop videos, they only exist to give you information in pieces. So there's some things that I talk about from past workshops that do not apply to this course. So I don't want you to become confused if you were to hear me mention something about how to binding your books or something like that. That's not where. Just pay attention to the main focus, which is the artist. Remember that the each unit's description tells you exactly what we're expecting. So follow everything in order with their course, and you will be okay. All right. So here are a few of my favorite artists. Just a few. I have a lot that inspire me and motivate me to create. All right. So thanks so much, and here they are. About what I like to look at to be inspired, and there's no doubt one of the most enjoyable things that I like to look at is the creation by Bill Watterson, a cartoonist from Ohio, Calvin and Hobbes. A lot of you probably already know Calvin and Hobbes from newspaper and books that you would see, collection of the comic strips. But this is a comic strip that ran for pretty good, I think it's almost like 20 years maybe not that much, but I'm not really sure exactly. But however, Bill Watterson created these amazing characters using these simple lines. I'm a big ink fan, brushes and nibs and things, so seeing how he created these basic shapes to make up characters in his stories, I think are always so interesting. Just look at the hair, the brush strokes making up the hair, just a series of triangles. So anytime that I want to be inspired, I look at Bill Watterson's work. I love how he can show action and animation just through, the movement of the inside the panel. He does a great job with that. So the story is based on Calvin, which is a little boy, and Hobbes, which is the tiger, and they go on adventures together. And as you can see, a lot of times Calvin is having these daydreams about flying spaceships, or sometimes he gets attacked by dinosaurs, all this cool stuff that he incorporates into his comic strip. And all the action and wonderful scenes that you see, all created simply with a nib pen and a brush. I'm Norman Pettingill, and he was an Alaskan artist. He's passed away, but this book was created to showcase his art. Now there's a specific reason I want to show this artist today. We're talking about landscape and we're talking about architecture together. And Norman lived in the backwoods of Alaska. His whole life, he created these images for postcards, and that's how he made a living. He wasn't really well known. Of course, like it happens with most artists, until he passed away, his work became popular and people sought it as collecting it as pieces of art. But if you notice what Robert does with his landscape drawings, they're much more detailed. There's an emphasis more on the landscape rather than the architecture, in contrast to Robert's work. For instance, if you look at this drawing here, he incorporates also cartoons. So if you're interested in cartooning still, but you also like landscape drawings, well, there's no probably better reference or example than Norman's work. He would do these large murals. This is about 21 by 30 inches here. He done this in 1953. And this is ink on paper, so this is all pen and ink drawing. But you'll see all these various characters, and you could sit and look at this and pick out different things happening for a very long time. You can't take it all in at once. So Architecture and landscape combined really can pull a neat effect out in art. You don't have to necessarily keep with one certain focus. You could do a lot of different things, and so we're going to go ahead now and take a second to get our materials together, because we are going to work on something together centered around this subject area. Let's take a look at some of Jack Kirby's early work. We see that Jack Kirby has made mistakes. Now, this is all photocopied references of his work. So this is the unpolished version for print, as they say. So looking at Jack Kirby's earlier work, this is all unpolished pages, as we said earlier. You could see that in some of these pages he's made mistakes, and he's used whiteout to compensate for that. If you look close here between these rocks, you might be able to see the white. It may be a little difficult to pull out from on screen, but I'll try to find another page that's a little better example here. These are all, like I said, unpolished pages, so this is the pages that Kirby would actually send in order to be printed. So we have whiteout around the top for the lettering here that he's used. Other examples a little earlier on in his work, around the borders for getting the lines a little straight, more straight you could say, and polishing that up. He used a lot here, and he's even made notes or annotations, but whiteout is absolutely essential when inking. You need it because mistakes are going to be made, different things that you need to rearrange or pull out or change over. Here's actually a lot of whiteout work you can see around the top of the man's head here and along these edges. So what makes Kirby's style so unique, though, is his heavy inking styles. Kirby was really influential with the way he would position and put together a page for a comic. So you see these panels, how they flow. Well, Kirby started to break free from this form. He would use these panels in different ways. He would reshape them, different sizes. Here's some whiteout again on some of these pages here. But Kirby's influences really extend all the way to modern day and current times with the cartoonists working in the field today. His work was very detailed, shadow was very heavy, and it almost references film noir, which is a type of look that film go for, and usually in mystery or in crime movies, or this heavy shadow work where the shadow is almost a character in the story. Shadow usually makes the reader or viewer feel a little, not so secure. There's some danger elements, unknown, suspense, mystery, those sorts of things. So it adds to the experience of reading or watching a movie when you have this effect going on. So Kirby did that for comics, though. Jeff Smith is a cartoonist. He attended The Ohio State University, and while he was there, he actually did cartoons, editorial cartoons, which we'll go over at some point what that is, but he worked on editorial cartoons for the student newspaper at The Ohio State University. Upon leaving, he did a bunch of different things, but if you notice, this is probably his greatest achievement. This is called Bone. And this is the largest graphic novel, and graphic novels, basically what that means is a big comic book that's ever been produced. I think the second one to this is Craig Thompson's Blankets, but this is a fantasy-based type of work. If you like Lord of the Rings, you would love Bone. The characters in there are pretty simple. We're going to be looking at one of those today, Phone Bone, which is one of the main characters from Jeff Smith's Bone. I've brought up the Bone character so you can see it, and brought it up on the screen. So the Bone character is a pretty simply designed character. They almost look a little bit like the early Donald Duck type stuff from Disney. However, there are some differences. The characters are completely white. When this book was first produced, it was in black and white. Now, if you're familiar at all with the workshop in this television show, you're familiar with what we've called the Marvel method. We've talked about that almost every episode. What the Marvel method is a technique that you use in drawing, in basic drawing, especially when you're drawing human forms or forms that use anatomy, head, shoulders, feet, body parts. How those things are placed together. That's one of the hardest things that I've noticed young artists have the trouble with, is drawing
using drawing anatomy and things of that nature. So I want you to pay attention here, though, to this drawing in terms of how Jeff put it together. Okay, let's take a look here. First, we have circle. Look for circles. We have a circle here. There's a circle or oval shape here. The body makes up an oval. We have ovals for the arm. Okay, we'll draw circles starting out for the hands here and here. And then we also have these oval shapes for the legs. And the leg is bent. And a little oval shape here. And then, of course, the oval for the feet. Now you can see these are all simple shapes that are pulled together to create the look of bone.